Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. We'll share species research, information, and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend part of the show opening a space for contemplation and awe. We'll perform a soundscape of gentleness, of reflection, and maybe of grieving. Without conservation activity and substantial societal shift, many of these species may not survive the 21st century. And so perhaps we might acknowledge their journey with a moment of our attention, a recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Belin Sweet Pea. The Belin Sweet Pea is a critically endangered flowering legume plant native to the Middle East, specifically the Antalya province in southern Turkey. The Belin Sweet Pea has a climbing growth form, meaning the plant's stems ascend vertically by attaching to external supports, like other plants, rocks, walls, fences, rather than relying on their own structural rigidity to grow upright. The Belin Sweet Pea develops touch-sensitive, specialized leaf structures called tendrils, which coil around like other plant stems or objects in its habitat, facilitating upward growth, increasing access to sunlight, crucial for photosynthesis. From ground to full extension, the Belin Sweet Pea generally reaches from 1 to 3 feet in total length. Its flowers are striking and particularly gorgeous. They develop in a papillionate arrangement. Papillon is the French word for butterfly, and this flower form is so named as it does kind of resemble a butterfly. The petals have this very distinctive arrangement. There's a large upper petal called the banner, 2 lateral petals called wings, and 2 fused lower petals called the keel. The banner petal in the Belin Sweet Pea grows large and upright with a yellowish color marked by reddish-orangish arched veins throughout. The wings, which provide like a landing platform for pollinators, are bright yellow. And the keel is a paler yellow, and it forms a kind of hood enclosing the flower's reproductive organs. Individual flowers roughly measure 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch in length. They have a bright, sharp scent. They bloom in the summer, roughly June to August. Though my research did not turn up specific documentation of this, these floral adaptations suggest the Belin Sweet Pea is pollinated by bees, attracted to its rich coloring and scent. Once pollinated, the flowers develop small green pea pods. This is a legume, a pea plant. So the pods are generally less than an inch in length and about a quarter inch wide, each one holding 2 to 3 seeds, the peas. And the pods are indehiscent, meaning they do not actively split open upon maturity to release their seeds. Instead, seeds are most likely distributed by barychory, that means by gravity. So the pods fall from the flowers, and the seeds are released as the pod decays on the ground near the parent plant. The seeds will remain dormant until the following spring. The Belin Sweet Pea is an annual, meaning it completes its entire life cycle within a single growing season. So it sprouts, grows, flowers, produces seeds, and dies all within 1 year. Don't eat these peas. My first thought, looking at the gorgeous flowers of the Belin Sweet Pea, and given its name, Sweet Pea, I assumed the seeds would be delicious, but instead the peas contain amino acids and aminonitriles that, when consumed in abundance, can cause a neurotoxic condition resulting in muscle weakness, paralysis, weakened pulse, shallow breath, and convulsions. So do not eat Belin Sweet Peas. The Belin Sweet Pea is native to southern Turkey in the Kumluca district of the Antalya province, near the village of Belin. Its entire known wild population is concentrated in a less than 1 square mile area near the D400 expressway. It's found in shrubby grassland on rocky limestone hillsides at roughly 1,800 feet above sea level. These are whitish, tan, dusty foothills nestled between the Taurus Mountains, which rise about 5 miles to the north, and the coastline of the Mediterranean Sea, which is about 5 miles to the south. This is a shrubland of thin soils, populated by low-growing vegetation, with open spaces of grasses marked by stands of small trees and areas of bare, rugged rock. Summers are hot and dry, with highs averaging in the low 90s. Winters are cooler and wet, with lows in the upper 30s. This is a Mediterranean climate that receives a moderate amount of precipitation, roughly 50 inches per year, with the majority of that rainfall coming in the winter months. The Belin Sweet Pea shares its native habitat with starred agama, stone pine, Lycian asparagus, bay Lycian salamander, slender stemmed mullein, Taurus ground squirrel, Lycian ironwort, eastern imperial eagle, Lycian blue butterfly, rock rose, spear-leafed sagebrush, Anatolian Lycian salamander, scarlet corn poppy, Turkish pine, Eurasian lynx, caracal, bordered bug gloss, Lycian stonecress, Kruper's nuthatch, and many, many more. In the dream, to be a lightness on a hillside. To be soft and bright among the jagged stones. To be a flame in a graveyard. To be beautiful, to climb, to nurture small offerings coaxed from sunlight. To promise, to seed. All of that. All of that. And to despair at the whim of giant machines. In the dream. Historically, the Belin Sweet Pea's population was reduced by overgrazing from domestic livestock, which so substantially depleted the area's vegetation that sometime in the 20th century, sections of its habitat were actively replanted. But replanted with coniferous trees whose tall growth form blocked the necessary light needed for the Belin pea's survival. I should note that the Belin Sweet Pea was only recently described in 1988, and at that time, its population had already been reduced to only roughly 5,000 individuals. So researchers have had to infer these historic threats based on current conditions. In the time since the late 1980s, the plant's primary threat has been human land use and development, specifically infrastructure like roadways and land clearing for the construction of a police station, which destroyed roughly 4,000 individuals. Neither the Belin Sweet Pea nor its habitat is legally protected. Its seeds have been collected and are conserved off-site at the Aegean Agricultural Research Institute in Menemen, Turkey, at the International Center for agricultural research in dry areas in Beirut, Lebanon, and at the Millennium Seed Bank Project at the Kew Royal Botanic Gardens in the UK. Lastly, and kind of heartbreakingly, there are in fact living specimens conserved in 3 international botanic gardens, but their locations are not publicly disclosed for threat of human poaching. The Belin Sweet Pea has been considered critically endangered on the IUCN Red List since 2012, and their population is currently in decline. Our most recent counts estimate that less than 1,000 Belin Sweet Pea and perhaps as few as 30 individuals remain in the wild. Information for today's show about the Belin Sweet Pea was compiled from Acta Botanica Gallica, Volume 156, Number 3, from Crop Wild Relative, Issue 8, April 2012, from Genetic Resources and Crop Evolution, Volume 45, from the IUCN, from the Kew Bulletin, Volume 43, Number 4, from Plant Heritage, June 2017, from the Proceedings of the Royal Society B, Volume 271, from the Turkish Journal of Biodiversity, Volume 4, Number 1, and from Wikipedia. And so in a moment, I would like to perform some music in hopes of opening a space to be in contemplation of the other lives with whom we share our earth. I do not intend to put meaning upon or extract meaning from the Belin Sweet Pea. Instead, I want this music to express my human awe and to be a moment to consider my own relationship to other life, like the Belin Sweet Pea, in particular as that life may near extinction. And so I will sit in a space of sound and awe and contemplation, and I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Belin Sweet Pea. I will commit its human name to my record. I am grateful to have shared time on our planet with this beautiful being. I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. I grieve. And so, in the name of the Belin Sweet Pea, I pledge to reduce my consumption, my carbon footprint, and my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of my actions, as well as my inactions. And I pledge to resist the harm of plant and animal kin and their habitat by individuals, corporations, and governments. I pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, and to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Bad Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let's take care of each other and all of our kin. Goodbye.